In this video, I'll be talking about case 2 of this koan text, Zen Schools No Gate Pass, 禅宗 Wumenguan. So the title of case 2 is Paitsang Yehu, Paitsang's Wild Fox. So it's rather similar in title to case 1, 潮州狗子, 潮州's doggy. So case 2 is Paitsang's Wild Fox. Case 1 is 潮州's doggy. So some similarity in title. There are no more animals in the title of other cases. So these are the two cases which are titled rather similarly. So this is the koan, the case. Okay. Upadaya Paitsang. So Upadaya, or we call 和尚, okay, in Chinese, 和尚. So 和尚 is actually an honorific title for a learned Buddhist monk. Okay, I've talked in detail in my previous video on case 1 regarding the term of address, Upadaya. If you're interested, you can watch the video to learn more about it. Okay, next is Paitsang. Okay, who is Paitsang? Actually, there are quite a few monks in the land records who are called Paitsang. Okay, all these Zen teachers, monks, they are called Paitsang because they are all associated to the Paitsang mountain or Paitsang cliff of this Daxiong mountain, okay, also known as the Great Hero Mountain at Hongzhou. So this is a name that people refer to when they want to talk about these Zen teachers. Okay, but in this case, Paitsang is actually Paitsang Huaihai. Okay, Paitsang is a name people call because these monks are all associated to the Paitsang mountain. Okay, Hongzhou, as some of you may know, is Mazhu Daoyi's area of Zen monasteries. Okay, under his lineage, okay, the Hongzhou school of Zen Buddhism. So the Zen teacher mentioned in this case is Paitsang Huaihai. Okay, this Paitsang here is Paitsang Huaihai. Is especially famous for his supposed work with Mazhu Daoyi. Okay, the sort of the pioneer of the Hongzhou Zen Buddhism school. So Paitsang Huaihai is famous for working with Mazhu Daoyi in revamping the Buddhist monastery system into that of the Chongling system. Okay, Chongling system, or what we can call the forest, or in Sanskrit, the Pyavana system. Okay, why Chongling? Why forest? It's meant to be that the monks are like trees, and when these monks gathered together to study Buddhism together, it's like the trees together, such that it's known as a forest. Okay, the Chongling system, Chongling Zidu, Chongling system. Also, the pure rules of the Zen Chongling monasteries are also attributed to Paitsang Huaihai, such that in some of the older Zen monasteries, you may even find a statue of Paitsang Huaihai in one of the hall. Okay. So to continue with the koan, the case, Upadaya Paitsang, whenever he ascended the hall to give a sermon. So this sermon, what is it? Under the Tongling monastery system, the abbot will usually assign senior learned monks to give sermons, okay, known as Can. So you can see the word here, Can. But of course, the abbot can also choose to give the sermons himself. So sometimes when there is this Can, this sermon, you will see all the monks filing up, standing. Okay, some after their prostration will also take their position, while the lecturer, either the abbot or some senior learned monk, will be seated in the middle or standing in the middle to give the sermon. That's why if you read Zen texts, sometimes the sermon will end with the lecturer saying that, brothers or the assembly, you have been standing for long, okay, take care of yourself. That's how some of the sermons will end. As you can see, it's because the monks will be all standing, orderly. Okay, the rules of positioning are rather strict. There's a certain protocol to it. Okay, but usually they will be standing and listening to the sermon. This Can is also used when to give private interviews or small group interviews by the abbot. Something like the Dokusan in Japanese. So the Dokusan, the son of the Dokusan, is actually this Can. Okay, like the Sanzen of Japanese also is this Can. So this Can can be a public sermon, or it can be a private sermon to an individual, or a private interview with a small group of monks. So whenever Paitsang ascended the hall to give a sermon, there was an old man who will follow the congregation, okay, the congregation of monks, to listen to the Dharma talk. Okay, Dharma here is Fa. Okay, 听法, Fa. Usually it means Buddhist teachings or the wisdom and phenomenon as taught by Buddha. Okay, so in studying koans, one of the key thing is to be able to see the Dharma of the koan. What is happening in the koan in terms of Dharma? Okay, Dharma, Fa. So Paitsang, when he gives the sermon, there will be an old man who will follow the congregation to listen to the Dharma talk. When the congregation retreated from the hall, the old man would also retreat. So one useful way of studying koans is to question the details and wonder about them. Okay, what is called yi, which are usually translated as doubt, but can also mean suspect and wonder. Okay, just like case 1, where women thought to arouse doubt about the case, about the koan, and use this arousal of doubt to investigate. Okay, so it's useful to question the details and wonder about them, because koans are usually concise. So you've got to ask yourself why these details are added. Like in this case, what is it about the old man with this detail of following the congregation to listen to the Dharma talk? And why this detail of when the congregation retreated, the old man will also retreat? What is the point? What is the purpose of it? So to continue, suddenly, one day the old man did not retreat. So what is going on? Okay, what is it with this retreating, following and retreating, and then suddenly the old man did not retreat? What does it imply? Okay, because the old man did not retreat, he stayed back. teacher Paitsang. Okay, teacher here refers to Paitsang. Teacher Paitsang thus asks, "He who is standing before me, please reply what person you are." Okay, 何人. Okay, the phrase used here is 何人. 何人 basically means who are you? So Paitsang saw this old man staying back. So Paitsang asked, "Who are you?" But literally it can be translated as, "What person are you?" So it's actually an interesting phrase used because this Chinese line is actually crafted in such a way that there can be a smooth and fitting transition to the old man's reply of him not being a human person. Okay, these are 何人, this person here, 人 here, is useful to link to the part where the old man replied that he's actually not a person, not a human person. Okay, so this Chinese line is actually crafted in such a way, okay, for a smooth and fitting transition. And if you have seen many of the other koans, sometimes you will notice such crafting of the Chinese line in a way to fit a reply. So the old man said, when Paitsang asked what person you are, so the old man said, "Yes, sir, this me is actually not a human person." Okay, again you can see the word 人 here. Just now you see 何人, now he say he is 非人. Okay, it's not a human person. In the past, during the time of Kasyapa Buddha, I once stayed at this Paitsang mountain. So here we've got another Paitsang. Okay, this old man is also a Paitsang. Okay, staying at Paitsang mountain. Okay, and during the time of Kasyapa Buddha. So who is Kasyapa Buddha? Kasyapa Buddha is the sixth of the past 7 Buddhas. Okay, he is the teacher of the Bodhisattva who will later become the 7th Buddha. Okay, the Buddha we know as Sakyamuni Buddha. Okay, or we sometimes say the historical Buddha. So Kasyapa Buddha is actually Sakyamuni's teacher in one of his previous lifetime. So it's interesting, why this detail of Kasyapa Buddha? Okay, would the koan actually work without this additional detail? Seems like it will work. So why is this information added here? Why is it here? I'm not sure if the Zen text, Five Lamps Meeting the Source, 五灯会元, okay, has been translated into English. But if possible, can check out the entry on Kasyapa Buddha. Okay, he actually gave an interesting gatha, a verse or poem. So Kasyapa Buddha, if you can check out the entry about him in Five Lamps Meeting the Source. But as stated in the various lamp records, the teaching transmission of Zen lineage goes by the 7 Buddhas, which Kasyapa Buddha is the 6th, and then the transmission goes on to Sakyamuni Buddha, or we sometimes call the historical Buddha. And from Sakyamuni Buddha, it goes on to the 28 Indian ancestors. Okay, first to Mahakasyapa, then to Ananda, and so on and so forth, through to Nagarjuna and many famous Indian monks, all the way to the 28th, who is known as Bodhidharma. So Bodhidharma is the last of the Indian ancestors, the 28th, and the first of the Chinese Zen ancestors. Okay, the first Chinese Zen ancestor. So the 28th year and the first year is actually the same person, Bodhidharma. And from Bodhidharma, it goes on to the 6th Zen Chinese ancestor, Huineng. And from then on is no longer a one-to-one lineage transmission. Okay, it's transmitted to many other people. So this is the transmission of Zen lineage, okay, according to the various land records. So perhaps a hint here that this koan is about teaching, transmission, okay, the Dharma teaching or the Dharma transmission. As compared to case 1, which is, I feel, solely about practicing, okay, about koan practice, practicing on your, in a way, on your own. But case 2 seems like the hint here is that it's about teaching or Dharma transmission. So this old man, he was actually probably a teacher teaching at Paitsang mountain during Kasyapa Buddha's time. And there was a student asking him, okay, because of a student asking, great practitioners still fall into cause and fruition or not? So he's probably a Buddhist teacher, the old man, and a student asked him a question and he has to answer it. Okay, because of a student asking, great practitioners still fall into cause and fruition or not? Okay, great practitioners. What are great practitioners? 大修行的人. Okay, they are those who have realized awakening, enlightenment. Okay, so-called the noble ones. Okay, they have realized awakening, enlightenment. And generally those of the Mahayana Buddhism. Okay, Mahayana, the great vehicle. Okay, great practitioners of the great vehicle. So generally those of the Mahayana involved in teaching. Okay, those of the great vehicle, they are bodhisattvas, okay, aiming to be Buddha, who is involved in the teaching of the Dharma. Okay, there's an interesting word to note here, still, okay, which in Chinese is this hai. Okay, and if you recall, it's similar to case 1, where the question asked is, doggy still have Buddha nature or not? Okay, still. It's a small detail, but there are implications. Okay, a small detail that has implication. So the question asked is not great practitioners fall into cause and fruition or not. The question asked is actually great practitioners still fall into cause and fruition or not. Okay, there's a still here. Just like the question in case 1 is not doggy, does doggy have Buddha nature or not? It's actually, does doggy still have Buddha nature or not? So it's a interesting small detail that some of you might want to take note. Okay, next is 因果. Okay, 因果. 因果 here, if you read most of the translations, it's usually translated as cause and effect, with cause as the seed planted and effect as the fruition of the seed. Here I've translated it rather more literally into cause and fruition. Okay, 因 is cause, while 果 here, 果 is fruition. So the question is, great practitioners still fall into cause and fruition or not? If this me replied, it is the old man saying, I replied, this me replied. So the old man replied, not fall into cause and fruition. So the student asks, great practitioners still fall into cause and fruition or not? The old man replied, not fall into cause and fruition. So no, not fall into cause and fruition. So the old man continued, hence, for 500 lives, I dropped in a wild fox body. So because of this one answer that he gave, this one reply, he actually fell into wild fox body for 500 lives. So it seems like he gave a wrong reply, which is rather interesting, because then woman in case 1 actually say that upon realization, okay, upon enlightenment, one arrives at the shore of the sea of life and death. Okay, this sea of life and death is the samsara cycle, okay, afflicted by dukkha, suffering. So you actually cross the shore, cross the sea of this samsara, this dukkha, okay, cross the sea to arrive at the shore and attaining great freedom, autonomy. So great freedom, autonomy upon realization, upon awakening, upon enlightenment. But yet here the old man, when he replied that great practitioners do not fall into cause and fruition, this old man actually dropped into a wild fox body for 500 lives. So it seems like this is a wrong answer. Okay, something to think about. And it seems to contradict what woman said in case 1, where actually great freedom and autonomy is attained upon realization. Now, I beseech Upadaya here referring to teacher Paitsang, Paitsang Huaihai. Okay, now I beseech Upadaya to give on my behalf a turning phrase, worthy of shedding, liberating this wild fox. Okay, so he would like to be free from this wild fox body, this old man. Okay, so he actually asked Paitsang, the Upadaya, to give on his behalf a turning phrase. So Upadaya refers to teacher Paitsang Huaihai, and as I've mentioned earlier, and also in case 1, this is the proper Buddhist term of address for Zen teachers then. Okay, Zen teachers were never addressed as Zen teachers. During Tang and Song dynasty at least, they are always addressed as Heshang, okay, which in Sanskrit means Upadaya. To give on my behalf a turning phrase. This is another crucial detail of the koan. It actually implies something of the old man's understanding, especially the phrase, turning phrase. So this is no simple wild fox. This old man is no simple wild fox. He is able to emanate human form, okay, to appear before Paitsang in the form of a human. And he's able to recall past lives. So his attainment is rather high. Okay. He has such ability to emanate and to recall past lives. So this is no simple wild fox. And with regards to turning phrase, okay, turning phrase here is in Chinese, 转语. You'll see this quite often in Zen texts. Okay, 转语, turning phrase. It is hard to explain what turning phrase actually is, but I guess at the intellectual level, the turning can be appreciated as that of turning the light back to realize the original face. In quite a number of Zen texts, you will see the instruction of turning the light back, and you will often hear or read of seeing the original face or realizing the original face. 本来面目 original face eye or original face. So turning phrase, I guess in the intellectual level, we can appreciate turning as turning the light back. Okay, instead of the light shining outwards, the light turns back such that one can realize the original face. So now Paitsang will have to give a phrase, a turning phrase. Okay, it's actually a reply on the old man's behalf. So what will Paitsang's phrase be? Okay, that will be able to turn. So after the old man asked for Paitsang's help, the old man started reenacting the scene. Okay, so taking the role of the student. Thereafter, the old man asked Paitsang, great practitioners still fall into cause and fruition or not? Okay, so here we have the old man reenacting the scene, but playing the role of student this time. So what will Paitsang's reply be? What will Paitsang's turning phrase be? Teacher Paitsang said, not ignorant of cause and fruition. Whereas in the previous example, the old man replied, not fall into cause and fruition. Paitsang actually changed one of the term into not ignorant of cause and fruition. So instead of 不落因果, the teacher said 不昧因果. Instead of 落, Paitsang changed it to 昧. Okay? Instead of 不落因果, Paitsang said 不昧因果. So this is how Paitsang changed the phrase. And upon hearing these words, the old man had a great awakening, enlightenment. Okay? 大悟, great awakening, enlightenment. So what is going on here? Why was the old man awakened, enlightened upon these words? Is it the previous phrase was wrong and this phrase was right? Is it the previous phrase of 不落因果 was wrong, whereas the phrase of 不昧因果, okay, the 昧 here, was right instead? Okay, not fall into cause and fruition was wrong, whereas not ignorant of cause and fruition is right. Is that what is happening here? If you say not fall into cause and fruition is wrong, 不落因果. So if you say not fall into cause and fruition is wrong, why is it that the old man can then be freed from the cycle of rebirth as wild fox? Because if this is wrong, okay, there's no such thing as not falling. How is it that the old man can be free? And if you say not fall into cause and fruition is right, that means the great practitioner will not fall into cause and fruition. Why did the old man then fall into a wild fox in the first place? Okay, how did he fall then? So either way, if you say that is right, if you say that is wrong, it just doesn't fit with this koan. And if you say it's because of not ignorant of cause and friction, that therefore there is no fall into cause and friction, then you will have to take note that Wumen criticized this as gravely erroneous in his ode at the end. Because there may be some people who think that if you are not ignorant of cause and friction, as in like crossing the road, if you are not ignorant of what is going to happen, you will not fall into cause and friction. You will not get knocked down by the car. You will, because you are not ignorant, you are aware, and so you do not fall into the situation of being knocked down. Some people may try to interpret it this way. Okay, in not ignoring cause and friction, thus there is no falling into cause and friction. But take note that Wumen actually criticized this at the end as gravely erroneous. So what is going on? Why did the old man had a great awakening enlightenment? It's also something very interesting, okay, that Wumen didn't end the koan at this point. Unlike Wansong Xingxiu's version in Book of Serenity, which is another koan text. Okay, in if I'm not wrong, case 8 of Book of Serenity, Wansong actually ended the koan at this point. Okay, upon hearing these words, the old man had a great awakening enlightenment. Full stop. That's it. The koan has ended. But Wumen actually didn't end the koan at this point, because there's actually a second part to this story, okay, according to the Lamb records. So all these koans are taken from the Lamb records. The full koan actually involves a second part, which Wansong Xingxiu did not continue. So it's interesting if we compare case 1. Case 1, Wumen cut short the doggy koan halfway. Okay, because the koan taken from the Lamb records actually did not end with just the no. The doggy koan actually is a 4-liner, whereas Wumen ended it in the second line. He cut it halfway. While Wansong Xingxiu in Book of Serenity continued the doggy koan in full. So in case 1, Wumen cut the doggy koan halfway. But in case 2, Wumen continued the fox koan, which is opposite from what Wansong did. Wansong continued the doggy koan, but Wansong cut this fox koan in half. So I thought there is something rather interesting. Okay, the different approaches to the two koans. As an aside, it can be interesting to make comparisons between the cases in Wumen's No Gate Pass and Wansong's Book of Serenity. Okay, both are koan texts, and both are published around the same time. Book of Serenity was published around 1224 CE. No Gate Pass by Wumen, which is this text, was published around 1228 CE. Okay, and Wansong stayed up in the north, okay, in the Jing and Mongol Empire, and he wrote and published the Book of Serenity around 1224 CE. Wumen actually lived in the south, okay, in Song Dynasty. Okay, stayed in the south in Song Dynasty and published No Gate Pass around 1228 CE. And in about 50 years' time, okay, around 1279 CE, Song Dynasty was conquered, okay, by the Mongol Empire. So Song Dynasty came to an end in 1279 CE. So now let's continue the koan. okay, as according to the land records, which women followed, but which this part, the second part, was not recorded in Wan Song Xing Xiu's koan, okay, in Book of Serenity. So we shall continue with the second part of this koan. Okay, 做李云, the old man made prostration and said. So Li here is unlikely to be just bowing. The old man was greatly enlightened, greatly awakened. So the old man made prostration. Okay, the old man made prostration and said, "This me has shed the wild fox body, which stays at the back of the mountain." So this old man, as we can see now, is actually an emanation in a monastery. His wild fox body is still at the back of the mountain. So the old man made prostration and said, "This me has shed the wild fox body, which stays at the back of the mountain. I implore Upadaya." Upadaya here refers to teacher Paitsang. I'm actually not very sure how to pronounce this Sanskrit term. Okay, so I'm calling it Upadaya. Okay, but Upadaya here refers to Hesang. Okay, Hesang, which is teacher Paitsang in this case. I implore Upadaya to follow the ritual of deceased monk in treating this body, okay, in treating this wild fox body, to follow the ritual of deceased monk. Again, what's up with these details? What is the purpose of telling the audience all these things? What is the point? Okay, something to think about. So the teacher Paitsang, had the director strike with the mallet to inform the assembly that after mealtime there will be a sending off a deceased monk. Okay, there will be a sending off of a deceased monk. Director here is Wei Na. Okay, Wei Na here. I've translated it here as director. Okay, it's similar to the term rector of Christian churches, rector. So what is a Wei Na or director? It's one of 3 management roles in a Buddhist monastery following the Zen Chongling system. Okay, Chongling, the forest system. As I've said earlier, it's a system of a Zen Buddhist monastery revamped by Paitsang and Mazu Daoyi. Okay, Paitsang Huaihai and Mazu Daoyi. So this director here is one of 3 management roles in a Buddhist monastery following the Zen Chongling, okay, forest system, Chongling system. So who are the 3 managers in a Zen monastery, this Chongling monastery? The 3 managers are the head monk, the abbot, and the director. So the head monk is usually one of the most senior monk in the monastery. The abbot is the sort of the president, the chairman, the leader of the entire monastery. And then there is the director. The director is in charge of directing the monks in all daily miscellaneous affairs, okay, like that of a rector, and administrative leader. So he is in charge of the administrative matters for all monks. So the teacher had the director strike with a mallet to inform the assembly. So this is the director here. Sending off. Okay, song. Sending off here basically means funeral service. Okay, sending off a deceased monk is actually a funeral service for this deceased monk. We will continue. So the teacher had the director strike with the mallet to inform the assembly that after mealtime there will be a sending off of a deceased monk. And the great assembly was in murmurs. Okay, they were whispering and talking and chatting among themselves. Everyone in the assembly is safe. The Nirvana Hall also holds no one sick. What is the reason for this? So they were wondering about this deceased monk. Who is this deceased monk? Everyone in the assembly is safe. So what's going on? What's the reason for this? The great assembly, okay, here, 大众. Okay, 大众 here, the great assembly, refers to the assembly of monks in a monastery. Basically, the monks who are staying in the monastery. Okay, together they are called the Great Assembly. So the Great Assembly was in murmurs. So the monks were chatting among themselves. Nirvana Hall. Okay, the Nirvana Hall also holds no one sick. The Nirvana Hall is like the sick bay of the monastery. So they were saying that in the sick bay, in the Nirvana Hall, there's no one there who is sick. So there's no one sick in the sick bay of the monastery. So that's why they're wondering, what is this deceased monk we are talking about? So what is the reason for this? It's an interesting question. Sort of it breaks the wall between the reader and the monks there. Because just as the monks are asking, what is the reason for this? Some of you are probably asking the same thing too. What is the reason for all these details? I thought the koan has ended already. The old man was enlightened, was awakened. So what's with all these details? What's going on? What's the point of all this? What is the reason for this? This is something to ponder about. So after meal, it was seen that teacher Paitsang led the assembly to the back of the mountain to under the cliff. Okay, as what the old man said, his fox body is at the back of the mountain. So after meal, teacher Paitsang led the assembly to the back of the mountain to under the cliff, where he used a staff to dig out a dead wild fox, which he treated in accordance to Buddhist cremation. Cremation. Okay, 火葬. Okay, 火葬 here, cremation. Traditionally, the Chinese practice burial, and they viewed cremation as barbaric and unethical. So to the Chinese at the time, only Buddhist monks practiced cremation, okay, where they will probably wrap the monk's body in cloth, in a white cloth. Sometimes they'll put some nice smelling fragrance or spices or things like that, and then they will burn it, and there will be other monks chanting, sort of, you can say, sending him off. Okay, hopefully he will go to a better place. Okay, which is what Chinese sometimes will say, sending him off, and hopefully he'll go to a better place. But of course, in this case, the wild fox, the old man was actually enlightened, awakened. So where he will go, we don't know. Okay, where will he go? We don't know. So what sort of sending off this is, we do not know. But what we know is that Paitsang treated the wild fox body, okay, in accordance to how the Buddhists would treat a deceased monk, to cremate it. So he used a staff to dig out a dead wild fox, which he treated in accordance to Buddhist cremation. And it's worth noting that traditionally the Chinese only practice burial. Okay, it's considered unethical to actually spoil the body. Even a single hair on the body is treated supposedly with respect. Okay, especially those who are deeply Confucianistic. Okay, Confucian actually regarded burial as very important. So the Chinese viewed cremation as barbaric and unethical. And only the Chinese Buddhist monks practice cremation. So after the cremation, at night, teacher ascended the hall and highlighted the causal conditions of the event earlier. Huangpo here refers to Huangpo Xiyun, who is described in Essential Dharma of Mind Transmission as the Dharma nephew of Paitsang Huaihai, okay, which is rather interesting because in the land records, it's actually described as the Dharma heir to Paitsang Huaihai, which in this case here, I think since the koans are taken from the land records, might be more appropriate to view Huangpo as later on being a Dharma heir to Paitsang Huaihai. So this is like an interaction between teacher Paitsang and Huangpo now, okay, Huangpo Xiyun. So after the teacher ascended the hall and highlighted the causal conditions of the event earlier, okay, the cremation earlier, Huangpo thus asked. The task here is also rather interesting, I find. Okay, it's a small detail I find interesting. Okay, Huangpo 便问, okay, 辩. Okay, Huangpo thus asked. So Huangpo here is asking a question in response to Paitsang's explanation of the earlier causal conditions. Okay, he's asking a question in response to Paitsang's explanation of the earlier causal conditions. So what is the question Huangpo asked? Huangpo thus asked, the ancient ones, in wrongly responding to a turning phrase, drops into 500 lives of a wild fox body. So the turning phrase is inappropriate. He falls or drops into 500 lives of a wild fox body. In not wrongly turning the turning phrase, what of the cooperation? So this is rather interesting. 转转不错. Okay. In not wrongly turning the turning phrase. So first there's an attempt at a turning phrase, and then there's a turning of the turning phrase. What of the cooperation? If this is a key point of the koan, two operations coming together. Okay, what of the cooperation? Okay, 合作. Okay, the two operations coming together. Cooperation. Okay, turning the turning phrase. If you remember correctly, the turning phrase offered by the old man initially was not fall into cause and fruition, 不落因果. So Paitsang turned that turning phrase from 不落因果 into 不昧因果, not ignorant of cause and fruition. So there's a turning of the turning phrase. The turning of the turning phrase. So what of the cooperation? This is the question put forth by Huang Po. So what is teacher Paitsang's response? Teacher said, "Come closer and I'll tell you." So Huang Po went closer and gave teacher a palm slap. Okay, 于是一掌. So this 一掌 literally means a palm, but should be actually a slap. Okay, if we interpret it. So Huang Po went closer and gave teacher a palm, a slap. Okay, and gave teacher a slap. So the student slapped the teacher. Again, what is going on? What is the point of this? Okay, why all these details? Is it to show off Huang Po? So it's something to think deeper about, because the entire koan actually is tightly tied together. Okay, sort of like a joke or poem where when you finally catch it, everything comes together, everything fits. So what is the point of this? What is the relation of Huang Po to this entire koan? And the teacher, instead of getting angry, the teacher Paitsang clapped and laughingly said. Most of you probably can see that Paitsang was actually pleased with Huang Po's action. But what is Huang Po's action in relation to the koan? How is it related? How does it tie together? So the teacher, Paitsang, clapped and laughingly said, "I thought the barbarian's beard is red, but it is red beard, that's the barbarian." And so ends the koan, with yet another puzzler, okay, a head scratcher, about beards and barbarians. So what is going on? Because this is actually the end of the koan as recorded in the land records, which women followed exactly. How does this tie up the entire koan? It's something to think about. Now we come to the commentary, the comment to case 2 by Wumen. Wumen Yue, Wumen said. So now he is going to comment directly on the case. Not fall into cause and friction. Why then drop to a wild fox? Not ignorant of cause and friction. Why then liberated from the wild fox? So as a reader or as the audience, can you see what the Dharma is of this situation? Okay, so when the student asked the old man during Kasyapa Buddha's time, great practitioners still fall into cause and friction or not? The old man said, not fall into cause and friction. And the old man thus dropped to become a wild fox. And later on, the old man asked teacher Paitsang for help and asked teacher Paitsang the same question. Great practitioners still fall into cause and friction or not? Teacher Paitsang said, not ignorant of cause and friction. And the old man was liberated, free. Okay, no longer stuck in cause and friction, liberated from the wild fox. Why? So Wumen continues with his comment. If towards this you attain a single eye, then you will know. So this single eye here should be referring to the Dharma Eye. Okay, in Buddhism, the Dharma Eye is the ability to see the Dharma. Okay, the Dharma Eye. And this idea of Dharma Eye is picked up by Zen teachers, which is why Dahui Zhonggao and Dogen, their koan commentary compilation, are called 正法眼藏. Okay, 正法眼藏, treasury of the true Dharma Eye. And it's actually a reference to the flower sermon given by Buddha, where the sermon, the Dharma transmission, mainly was that of Buddha holding or picking up a flower and Mahakasyapa smiling. Okay, that was the sermon, the Dharma transmission. So, 正法眼藏, treasury of the true Dharma Eye. And in this comment here by Wumen says, if towards this case, you attain a single eye, okay, this Dharma Eye, then you will know that the former Paitsang has won that of streaming on in the wind for 500 lives. Former Paitsang here should be referring to the old man, the wild fox. Okay, as I mentioned before, there are many Paitsangs in the land records. Okay, how this name Paitsang is used is because the Zen teacher is associated with the mountain, Paitsang mountain or Paitsang cliff. And this old man claimed to be staying at this Paitsang mountain during Kasyapa Buddha's time. So here Wumen refers to this old man as the former Paitsang. Okay, the wild fox, the old man, is known as the former Paitsang. Streaming on in the wind, 风流. This is tough to translate, 风流. 风流 can mean flirtatious, loose, okay, loose in a sexual manner, flirtatious and loose. It can also mean charming, undiminished. It can also mean passing down across the ages, like the flowing wind. Okay, like the stories being passed down across the ages, like the flowing wind. So I've chosen to translate this rather literally, 风流, is streaming on in the wind. 风 is wind, 流 is streaming on. Okay. Another interesting detail here is Wumen's usage of won with regards to the former Paitsang. Okay, the former Paitsang has won that of streaming on in the wind for 500 lives. Okay, 赢得. So most of us will have thought, hey, the former Paitsang dropped to become a wild fox for 500 lives. But here Wumen says the former Paitsang has won that of streaming on in the wind for 500 lives. Okay, why such an usage? It's something to ponder about again. Finally, we come to the ode, okay, the verse part, where Wumen wrote sort of like a poem to the case, an ode to the case. So this is what the ode says. 不落不昧，良才一赛。Not fall, not ignorant. 2 awards in one race. 不昧不落，千错万错。Not ignorant, not fall, 1,000 mystics and 10,000 mystics. Okay, or some people translate as 1,000 mystics and million mystics. As you can see here, the sequence matters, as hinted several times in the koan. Okay, but why is one sequence win-win and the other sequence faulty? Okay, this sequence, not fall, not ignorant. That means first you have not fall into cause and fruition, and then Paitsang says not ignorant of cause and fruition. In such a sequence, the turning of a turning phrase, it becomes 2 awards in one race, where in one race there's actually 2 winners, 2 awards in one race. So we can say that this sequence is win-win. However, the other sequence, where you start off with not ignorant of cause and fruition, then not fall into cause and fruition. Such a sequence is said to be 1,000 mystics and 10,000 mystics. It's not just one mystic, it's 1,000 mystics, terrible, and 10,000 mystics. Why is woman so critical of such a sequence? Okay, and how does this tie in to the entire koan? Why is one sequence win-win and the other faulty? Again, something to ponder about. That's all for this case 2, where we've completed the koan, the case. We've completed the comments given by Wumen and his ode to the case. I hope you find the translation provided and the information provided useful and helpful to ponder about this case. Okay, thank you for watching this video.